Tonight, could it be third time lucky for the Tories? 2 p.m. since the start of the year, and the search is underway for the next one. But could we be in for a Boris comeback? And are we ready for that?
Whatever we do, don't put Boris back in.
I can't believe that they're going to ask Boris Johnson back.
The nominations close on Monday, but a lot can happen over the weekend.
And I'm live in Westminster for the latest on the Conservative leadership race.
Also making the headlines, strike action moves a step closer for health workers as unions reject what the Scottish Government say is a record pay deal.
And in sport, there's a new era in Scottish football. Video-assisted refereeing will be used for the first time tonight. I'm Gordon Cree in Edinburgh.
And I'm Emma Cameron in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Boris Johnson could be poised to make a dramatic comeback as Prime Minister. At Westminster today, the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace endorsed Mr Johnson as Penny Mordaunt became the first minister to announce she would run. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak is considering his position tonight.
A second Johnson premiership could prove difficult for the Scottish Conservatives. Many believe the former Premier's unpopularity here cost the Scottish Party votes at the last Holyrood election. Well, live now to Westminster and our special correspondent, Bernard Ponsonby.
Let's just remind ourselves of the rules for this contest. In order to stand, a candidate needs to be backed by 100 members of Parliament. The deadline for close of nominations, 2 o'clock on Monday. If, for example, we have 3 candidates, then what will happen at that point is that there will be a vote of Conservative MPs to whittle it down to 2. Now, if the gap between first and second is rather large, in theory, we could get a coronation and a new leader and Prime Minister on Monday. Much more likely is the top 2 will go to an online vote of Conservative Party members, and that will be declared this time next Friday. Now, where are we tonight in terms of Conservative MPs backing candidates? Well, the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak, he is in the lead with 64 pledges of support at the moment. Penny Mordaunt, the only candidate to actually officially declare, has fewer than 20 members of Parliament supporting her. And Boris Johnson, a real headwind behind the notion that he should come back. He has some 40 members of Parliament backing him. What do the Scottish Tories think about it? Well, our political editor, Colin Mackay, has been canvassing opinion.
I will remain as Prime Minister until a successor has been chosen. Thank you.
That should be by this time next week at the latest. Penny Mordaunt today is the first to enter the race, with Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson expected to follow.
I want to thank everybody here and hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
In 2019, he won a general election with a huge majority. He was legitimately sent into Parliament as the Prime Minister based on the vote of the whole electorate, not just on Tory members, not just on members of Parliament. That he got a mandate, and I think that's an important thing for all of us to bear in mind.
Former MP Ross Thompson ran Liz Truss and Boris Johnson's leadership campaigns in Scotland, and he says the party members are furious.
They're the ones that campaign for MPs, they knock on the doors, they do all the canvassing, they stick out the leaflets, and they're also the ones that do all the fundraising. They're feeling pretty frustrated and demobilised at the moment because they feel that their choice has yet again been rejected. So there's quite a bit of anger and frustration.
But bringing back Boris would be bad news for Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross. He might have to consider quitting himself.
I voted against Boris Johnson in the vote of confidence, which led to his standing down as Prime Minister.
The favourite with the bookies is former Chancellor Rishi Sunak, who's credited with helping bring down Boris Johnson.
The welfare budget in Scotland is increasing by 50% over the next 5 years, right? That is wrong, right? And we have got to be able to make that argument. We are a party that believes in people working hard And we want that hard work to be rewarded.
I'm supporting Rishi Sunak, who I think is the only candidate that can credibly say that he's got a plan to drive down inflation, steady the economy and be in a position to grow this country moving forward.
With apologies to the Leader of the Opposition and the House, the PM is detained on urgent business.
Penny Mordaunt seems the closest to a unity candidate in a deeply divided Conservative party.
Well, the Prime Minister is not under a desk, as the Honourable Lady.
She's able to unite not just the Conservative Party and the government, but unite the entire country. And we're facing these extreme economic challenges. I think we all need to be coming together.
Balerno used to be prime Tory territory. They used to have the Scottish Conservative leader here, David McCletchie. Before him there was Malcolm Rifkind until the wipeout in 1997. And what the Tories are hoping that they can avoid is a repeat of that.
I think it's a shambles, I should say that straight away. I don't think that they could, run a bath, frankly. But I think we want someone who's going to be responsible.
They should get it sorted out, get back to their jobs and do their jobs a bit better than what they have been doing.
What do you think should come next after all that we've just seen?
I hate to say it, but I think probably a general election, to be honest.
Do you think that's the only way to clear the air and move on?
Yeah, there's nobody left in the current leadership party to take the reins, is there? But I kind of also think that it's a really good advert for independence, all that's going on.
Yep, definitely independence. It's embarrassing, really.
Not Boris. Whatever we do, don't put Boris back in.
Tell me what you think should come next.
A general election.
But Conservative MPs pushing for a general election would be like turkeys voting for Christmas. They're 30 points behind in the polls, so probably too chicken. Colin Mackay, STV News.
Well, Bernard, what would the consequences be if, and as you say, it's still a big if, Mr Johnson wins?
It would be deeply controversial. I mean, let's just consider what's happened here in recent months. Conservative MPs decided that Boris Johnson was not a credible leader. They collapsed his government. Minister after minister after minister resigned. His government collapsed. He was kicked out of Downing Street. Those same Conservative MPs have decided that Liz Truss is no longer credible. And yet there are Conservative MPs tonight, by no means the majority, but Conservative MPs tonight who think that the way out of this trouble, this political pickle that they're in, is to bring back a man that they collapsed in terms of his government just a matter of weeks ago. It is almost beyond parody. It is almost beyond satire. From Labour's point of view, I think they would much rather deal with Prime Minister Boris Johnson than Penny Mordaunt or Rishi Sunak. Here's what the opposition parties have been saying today.
Much of what we've seen over the last few weeks has been truly bonkers. It really would be beyond belief if the Tories thought it was at all an idea to bring back a Prime Minister that was forced from office. You were talking about close to 60 Tory ministers had to resign because of his behaviour. A man that he abused the office of Prime Minister when he was there. It is unthinkable that anybody should think it reasonable to bring back a character like this into political office again. He should be gone, and he should be gone for good.
I've already said that the Conservative Party are morally bankrupt and economically illiterate. Nothing emphasises moral bankruptcy more than Boris Johnson, and nothing demonstrates the economic illiteracy more than the actions of the last 3 or 4 weeks under Liz Truss. It's not credible, it's not serious, it's not a joke. This is a big, serious moment for our country, and frankly, the United Kingdom deserves better.
This time next week, we will know who the new Prime Minister is, and this green will hum to the world's media, who will interpret what this means for the politics of the UK. It's been a dramatic week here at Westminster. Another one next week as well.
It certainly will be. Many thanks for that, Bernard.
More news now, and a new pay offer has been made to Scotland's NHS workers. It works out at a rise of £2,205 a year. The Health Secretary says it's a reward for hard work, but the RCN, which represents nurses, is continuing to urge its members to vote for strike action. Well, Kay Nicholson's been following developments. Kay, what is the latest on this?
Yeah, Gordon, so the unions and the Health Secretary and others of the Scottish Government were in talks until almost 1 a.m. this morning, trying to find a way forward. Here's where we're at. The Health Secretary says this flat rate offer is the biggest pay award in the history of devolution, around £500 million, an average of around 7% of a pay rise. But the Scottish College of Midwives say that under this, most midwives will be worse off than they were a decade ago. And the Royal College of Nursing says it amounts to a real terms pay cut for some members. That had been pushing for about above 5% inflation pay rise.
We've got real issues around about not only recruitment but retention. These are well rehearsed. We know by the surveys that we've done, 6 out of 10 the last survey we did were telling us they were looking for other employment. I don't think this offer will actively change the level of unhappiness and how people feel valued, and I do think that will continue.
I don't begrudge any trade union for asking for an inflation-busting pay rise. If I was in their shoes, I'd probably be doing the same. But we have to recognise that inflation is through the roof because of the economic mismanagement of the UK government. And because of that, inflation is well in excess of, as we know now, 10%. And we can't afford that. That just isn't possible for us to be able to bring to the table.
And what can we expect to happen now?
Well, as Colin mentioned there, morale among NHS workers is pretty low. We've just been through the pandemic, and of course there's staffing concerns as well, particularly in A&E. And now winter is approaching, so there are concerns around the pressures at this time of year as well. So unions are balloting on industrial action. Strikes could be on the cards over the next few months. Now, Hamza Yousaf, when I spoke to him earlier, he said that would be catastrophic for the NHS. And as the cost of living crisis continues to affect all of us, we're expecting to hear more from NHS workers in the weeks to come.
Yeah, plenty more to come on this, Kay. For now, thank you.
Now, in a legal first, an Edinburgh man has been jailed for serious sexual offending under the Domestic Abuse Scotland Act. It's one of the first times this type of sexual assault has been included in a prosecution. 32-year-old David Finlay was found guilty of what the judge described as harrowing and coercive behaviour towards his former partners. Ivana Holland reports.
The acts carried out by David Finlay against his former partners were described by Lady Haldane as covering the full spectrum of coercive control, verbal, psychological and physical abuse, as well as including non-consensual sex. It was the compelling similarities in the testimonies of the complainers demonstrating a pattern of behaviour that led to his conviction last month in Livingston High Court, making him one of the first persons to be prosecuted under the Domestic Abuse Scotland Act, introduced in 2018. The Crown Office says that this legislation seeks to capture the reality of domestic abuse.
It recognises the repeated behaviour many victims endure over a period of time, often behind closed doors. It demonstrates how, as prosecutors, we will use the full provisions of this Act to achieve justice for victims.
The Director of Rape Crisis Scotland says legislation surrounding sexual offences clearly needs improvement, but today's sentencing is a step in the right direction.
Most cases never get to court. Those that do, it's got the lowest conviction rate of any crime type. So this can't be seen as an alternative, but I think it's totally appropriate for the Crown to be prosecuting it in this way, because in the context of coercive control and domestic abuse, there is a real question mark about how effectively somebody is able to consent to sex.
Finlay has been sentenced to 5 years in prison with a 3-year extension, and his name has been added to the Sexual Offenders Register indefinitely. Ivana Holland, STV News, at the High Court in Edinburgh.
Well, time now for other stories across Scotland, and the First Minister is due to give evidence to the Holyrood Committee investigating the procurement of 2 late and over-budget ferries at the Ferguson Marine Shipyards. The vessels are set to cost 3 times more than initially estimated and will be delivered more than 5 years late. Nicola Sturgeon is due to appear before the committee on November the 4th.
1 in 35 people in Scotland now has COVID-19, according to the Office of National Statistics. That's up from 1 in 50 in the previous figures. Total coronavirus infections across the UK have now climbed above 2 million for the first time since July.
There are calls for more support for Scottish businesses as many struggle to cope with the volatile economy. Business owners say the fear of large winter bills and rising inflation is piling on the pressure, which will be felt by customers as 80% of firms will have to put up prices in the coming months.
We've already seen over the summer months that more businesses in Scotland went insolvent compared to any time during the pandemic, just to illustrate how tough the environment is right now. There are tough decisions being made across boardroom tables across Scotland right now, but businesses are doing all we can to try and prevent any difficult decisions like job losses and business closures. But that can only happen if the UK government continue to provide the real support that businesses need.
Now here's Jaman with the sport.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Very good evening. Video assistant referees, often referred to as VAR, will be used in a Scottish Premiership match for the first time tonight. The new technology will be in operation for Hibs' game against St Johnstone, and as Ronnie Charters now reports, its introduction has been broadly welcomed by players and managers.
Easter Road gearing up for a new era in Scottish football. Tonight, video assistant referees will be in operation, with stadia across Scotland making some changes. From VAR signage on the big screens, cameras in position to make sure all angles are covered, and of course the VAR monitor on the sideline to allow the on-field ref a second look. It all starts tonight as Hibs take on St Johnstone.
I'm excited for the long-term justice element of it. I think that's really important, you know, particularly with when managers lose their jobs on bad decisions. I hope the flow can maintain, because I think that's one of the best things about particularly Scottish football.
You want it as soon as you can. Probably preferably, if I was going to give an honest answer, maybe at start like everything. But it's here. You know, it's after the first sort of 11 games, first quarter games, so it's good a time as any to start it.
So how does it all work? Well, VAR can only intervene if a clear and obvious error has been made by the officials or a serious incident has been missed. And these can only happen in 4 game-changing scenarios. They could be goals, red cards, incidents in the penalty area and mistaken identity. Now, if the VAR thinks that the on-field official has made a mistake, he will call him over to this, the VAR monitor, for a second look. And this is what's happening back at Clydesdale House.
OK, I'm going to recommend an on-field review for a potential penalty kick for handball.
The VAR control room, allowing referees to double-check a decision and communicate with the referees on the ground. VAR teams will consist of a Category 1 referee and assistant, as well as a replay operator. It's involved significant investment and lots of training for the officials, but they're confident it will improve decision making.
We want to get the decision right on the pitch. There's no denying that. We don't want to have to rely on VAR, but as you say, we have a safety net of VAR there that will check all of our penalty decisions. They'll check the red card decisions, and they'll confirm or otherwise if we've got it correct or not.
The main key point, getting used to the stop, start and play. If it's going to be at 3-4 minutes or whatever before the restart again, I think that's going to be the biggest difference. But again, it's probably just something that we need to get used to, and if it's going to help the game, then I think everyone needs to be all in on it.
So in just over an hour's time, VAR will be in operation and a new chapter for the beautiful game in Scotland will begin. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Giovanni Van Bronckhorst accepts his team's style of football hasn't been pleasing on the eye in recent domestic games and has called on his players to entertain as well as earn points. While Rangers are at home to Livingston tomorrow, Celtic travel to the capital to face Hearts.
And Willie Collum signals the ends. A smattering of boos around Ibrox.
Some Rangers fans showed their displeasure at full-time after their team struggled against Championship side Dundee in the League Cup. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst wasn't best pleased either. The Ibrox boss not only wants his team to win, but win with a certain style.
In the Cup, when you go through to the semi-finals, it's very positive, but, I can understand the last 25 minutes, the frustration. I had the same. And that's, because the big teams, the big clubs, the standards are really high. It's about winning games, but also, as you said, you need to entertain and you have to win in the right manner. So that's something we need to improve.
Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou is pleased with the way his side is getting results. The champions have scored 10 goals in their last 2 games.
People kind of look at the final result and say, well, you know, they're going really well at the moment. But like I said, I don't think we've been far off it anyway. But always pleasing to score goals home and away, I think. And, you know, for the players, they're human beings. I guess they get a bit of confidence out of that as well.
After progressing to the semi-finals of the League Cup during the week, Kilmarnock host Ross County tomorrow. Killie are unbeaten in their last 4 games.
We've got to try and treat Saturday like a cup tie, and you know, we knew it was an important week. This week we've had 2 decent performances and a couple of decent results, but this game on Saturday is arguably as big as any of them, so we've just got to go and try and get the job done. Players will be confident, the supporters will turn up and get behind them.
St Mirren will be aiming to maintain their good record at home when they face Dundee United.
Somebody told me we've won more games already than we did the whole of last season at home, so that's good. We want to keep that stat remaining. We want to build on that. So it was important last week. We didn't get beat. We kept the run going, and there's another opportunity.
There are all of this weekend's Premiership matches. The early kick-off tomorrow is at Tynecastle. Motherwell, who have lost their last 3 games, are at home to Aberdeen.
The boys are still believing in the process we've set out. Management staff and players are all together in what's happening. We still believe in everything we're doing. The style is something we're still working on, and it's getting there. Only 2 weeks ago we got to County and scored 5 goals, so we've got to take all these positives. We've lost the Rangers and Celtic this week, and there's certainly no doom and gloom in here.
Glasgow Warriors game against the Lions is postponed after 30 players and staff caught a stomach illness in South Africa. The league match was due to take place in Johannesburg tomorrow, but the clubs will now look to rearrange the fixture. Another URC team touring the country, Ulster, also had their game against the Sharks postponed due to sickness. That, folks, is all your sport tonight. Have a great weekend.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Now, Philip's here with that all-important weekend weather forecast.
The outlook for the day is calm and settled. TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
Well, as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, we are continuing to see these showers spreading in from the south. Those will move northwards overnight. Some of those could be quite heavy at times. We could hear the odd rumble of thunder. Elsewhere, extensive low cloud mist and murk around, a lot of hill fog in places. So with everything going on, temperatures aren't dropping too far. It won't be a cold night. Most places staying in double figures, lows of around 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. Now looking ahead to tomorrow, a mild start to the day, remaining unsettled unfortunately. We'll see this organised band of showers moving northwards through the morning. Once they do move though, through the afternoon things will be turning drier and clearer. So we will see some brighter spells later on in the day, and in the best of the brightness, temperatures reaching highs of around 14 degrees Celsius. Looking ahead to Sunday now, and it will be a similar day to Saturday. Our weather is still dominated by low pressure, this time to the southwest of the UK, pushing in further frontal systems across Scotland. So for Sunday, a wet start to the day for many central and southern areas. That rain will continue to work its way northwards through the course of the afternoon, with temperatures reaching highs of 14 or 15 degrees Celsius. For Monday, overall, it will be a day of a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. Those showers not as heavy as what we've seen over the past couple of days, with temperatures reaching highs of 14. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
Now, would you fancy being a dog fosterer? Well, the Scottish SPCA are appealing for more people to take on pets temporarily, as most of their dog homes have reached capacity. Well, we sent Polly Bartlett to Dumbarton to meet one family who've benefited from the scheme.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Meet Charlie. He's been living with Heath and Whipper in Dumbarton for a fortnight now. They're fostering him so he can lose some weight before he's rehomed.
So they've given us a diet plan for him, and we've just been building up his exercise gradually, just to get him a bit fitter, and he's already losing weight and getting closer to the way it should be.
Charlie has already lost more than 1 kilogram thanks to regular walkies and a healthy diet.
As a dog lovers, it would be great to have a dog around the house. And we realised that, this is a great cause, and that will help Charlie to build, his confidence and be ready for his new home.
The SSPCA are appealing for more dog fosterers because there are several centres across Scotland that are now at capacity.
Dog fostering was introduced after the pandemic to help rehoming centres cope with high demand.
There's some dogs that, unfortunately, due to whatever background or whatever training requirements, we do struggle to find them a home, and it takes them a bit longer. So the ability to take these animals and get them into foster homes means that they're getting to have the increased socialisation, spending time with person one-on-one every day, rather than as much as we can do what we can for them in the centres. We can't replicate a home environment, so it's got huge benefits for reducing the dog's stress levels and also increasing their opportunities for exercise and enrichment as well.
It's nice you can get a dog without having, the 15-year plus commitment. You can just foster one for a short term, so yeah, it's quite rewarding.
The SSPCA hope this winter more families will give dogs like Charlie a new lifestyle or a new life. Polly Bartlett, STV News, Dumbarton.
Well, that's all from us tonight. It's been a huge week in politics. Our new Prime Minister has resigned, and we're now in the search for another one as nominations are underway.
Yes, candidates have to secure 100 votes, and we'll know who all the runners and riders are by Monday. The new Prime Minister should be in place by this time next week. We leave you with a look back at the UK's shortest ever serving leader. Good night.
So why is she still here?
Thank you for putting your faith in me.
I've been waiting all day for you, babe.
Whilst the PM is detained on urgent business. I am determined to deliver. I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected.
You promised me forever.
I am a fighter and not a quitter. I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party. Opening up new pork markets.
Get out right now. It's the end of you and me.
We import 2/3 of our cheese.
'Cause I know about her, and I wonder how I bought all the lies. You said that you would treat me right, but you was just a waste of time. Tell me why you're looking so confused. How could you ever be so cold?
I was going to say sorry.
I am sorry, and that I have made mistakes. That is a disgrace. And gross.
Get out right now. It's the end of you.